As an 80s and 90s kid, you had it all when you had a playset for your favorite toys, like Castle Grayskull for instance. It would also function as a place to hold your figurines in, and you could carry it around easily. The immense detailed sets by G.I. Joe, it seems like every popular toy line needed a playset to really verify their existence. In this Ed's Retro Geek Out, we're going to take a look at 7 playsets that never got to be the background for your own fantasy storylines that you were playing out with the toys, and also will never be the perfect background to display your toys in as a collector. So strap in for some toy history. This toy history starts us off at the turn of the decade between the 80s and 90s. Cleaning the world had become a trend worthy of a toy line and a cartoon. And Captain Planet definitely checked all of those boxes. But one of the things that never got produced for these Tiger Toys action figures was the Hope Island playset. Tiger Toys started producing the Captain Planet and the Planeteers toys in 1990. The 1991 toy catalog showcased a drawing of Hope Island, the home of Gaia and also where the Planeteers would live. And that's all we got, the drawing and the text that came with it. It is not known if any prototypes out there exist for this playset. The playset would feature a Geocruiser landing pad, an eco track, kind of like a zip line, view screen communicator computer, Planet Vision, Eco Villain Detention Center with a trapdoor, and as cherry on top of the Planeteer peak, a falling boulder. Oh, and an elevator in the back. Serving as an eco-alert early warning center, Hope Island is the Planeteers' headquarters when they're not out battling the eco-villains, and it comes with everything an active Planeteer will need to stay on top of the world's environmental situation. Towering 19 inches in height, this would have been a huge playset, consisting of little parts of rock with their own little features thrown on there. You could actually move the set around. All the pieces would come on a large 40 by 40 full color vinyl. Some assembly was required, but knowing that the playset would exist out of different parts and pieces, you could move it around and create your own perfect setup of the playset or your own custom diorama. And did I mention to you that the Geocruiser landing pad was actually an inactive volcano, recycling that type of rock for landing purposes? And from one rock to another, let's head over to the next playset. This is the Stonehead playset. The Rock Lords is a spin-off to the GoBots toy line from Tonka. Introduced in 1986 after the movie GoBots, The Battle of the Rock Lords. You gotta think a bit of My Pet Rock, but they transform and they have guns. Needless to say, when these figurines came out, rock hounders and amateur geologists couldn't believe their eyes. Originally, they were imported from the Bandai's Machine Robo subline. The good guys were led by Boulder and the bad ones led by Magmar. Stonehead was a big part of the Rock Lords. The fortress was featured in the movie, the packaging, and even the mini-comic that came with the toys. So that kind of planned and worked towards bringing focus on Stonehead, but the playset never got past the prototype stage. And they really tried hard because there's 2 prototypes out there. The first one, featured in 1986 Tonka's catalog, not so much a fortress like the cartoon would depict it, but merely a head with a handle allowing you to open and close the mouth. Apart from the handle also activating a trapdoor, it would also have a jail cell and a built-in carrying handle, just like Castle Grayskull. But none of that you could really see on the pictures that are still available from this prototype. And because the toys vary in size, I do wonder how many of them would actually be able to fit inside of Stonehead's mouth. In 1987, a second prototype was featured in the Bandai catalog. Working on some of the gimmicks of the first one, you could open this one up. The weapon storage device looked pretty cool, and at least now you would have multiple platforms to work with. So even after 2 prototypes were introduced in catalogs, we never got to see the release of this playset, with the Transformers getting the better end of the transforming robot sales on the toy market. Rock Lords did manage to get 3 series out, but never got their own playset. And to be honest, the tagline they were working with didn't really make me want to become a rock scientist right away. You own Rock Mountain headquarters with prison, secret trap, hoist and weapon spinner, Rock Lords and Gnarlies are not included. Remember that one scene in the Tom Hanks movie Big, where they're talking about a transforming building? The building doesn't do anything. It's the robot inside that kind of makes it. So they change it to an insect, to a bug, and that works. Rock Lords, to me, is kind of the same thing. Okay, the robot is movable and the rock is in the skies, but what can you really do with the rock? I still wonder if this really appealed to kids, or if they were just destined to hit rock bottom. The next playset we're discussing came from the Superpowers toy line with the Tower of Darkness by Kenner. It was featured in a 1986 Toy Fair catalog, and also on the card backs of the 3rd series action figures. Heroes beware, the most diabolical deadly den of doom is waiting for you. Darkseid's Tower of Darkness, a featured part of the Superpowers programming. Darkseid's home is designed to trap and torture even the most powerful superpowers. The Omega Eyes warn heroes of the multiple dangers. 2 rotating cannons making ominous clicking sounds. Clicking sounds? Really? Mammoth clutching arms that close tight on approaching enemies. A revolving gate that turns into a jail cell. A rotating body vise. A head-slamming elevator attached to Darkseid's victory flagpole. A captured jaw that chumps down on its captive and then drops the victim into a lava pit. This playset is on fire. Now, Darkseid is one of the best villains of all time, definitely in the DC universe, so it's sad to see that this playset was actually set to be produced. There was even a proof sheet of the toy, but the line was cancelled.
No, Darkseid with the upper hand. And Wonder Dog.
Then we're gonna head into space with Galoop's Micro Machines. They had planned to release toys and playsets from the Aliens movie, even though it was 10 years after the release of the movie. But where else could you go from Star Trek and Star Wars, honestly? The only other big space franchise was Alien. Action Fleet was a series of Micro Machine toys that did well for the Star Wars toy line, so they planned one based on the vehicles from Aliens. And obviously they also planned a playset. The Outer World PlayStation was a micro version playset and the most amazing Alien sets to ever be created, but never produced, including exclusive micro figures of Bishop, Gorman, and Ripley inside of a power loader, and of course the talent, the aliens themselves. In one of the toy catalogs we did find this description: action scale playset from the sci-fi movie. Multi-level playset opens into dynamic interior-exterior battle action scenes. Planetary replica with figures and multiple action features, including flip open ship, alien queen, alien eggs with pop-up face huggers, figure catapult, drive down ramps, and parasites in see-through tanks. Unfortunately, the continuation of the Action Fleet toy line was cancelled due to the lack of demand for these Micro Machine toys based on the R-rated movie. But enough talk about space, let's head back to a simpler time back to that farm life with Barnyard Commandos. In 1989, Playmates didn't think you needed more than a squishy toy and an armor to put on top of it to sell it to kids. So Playmates started producing Barnyard Commandos. A year later, in 1990, a cartoon would follow based on these toys. The concept was farm animals. Throw some radioactive material in the mix and you have 2 opposing parties. On one side you had the Rams, the rebel army of military sheep, and the other side featured the Porks, the platoon of rebel killer swine, battling it out on the farmyard. The 1991 Playmates toy catalog featured the Port of War playset, a multi-platform armor on top of a huge pig with enough blasters to put the US flag to shame. And even some parts of TMNT's Sewer Dragster were used to make this playset prototype. And there's not really much going on apart from that. Although it would have been great to land some of those cool looking Barnyard Commando planes they released later in the toy line on one of these platforms. But enough farm talk, let's talk business. Let's get to the bacon. While I do have an interest in these, I'm not sure how this could have been a great playset. It just seems like they threw something together very quickly, the same way they did it with the action figures. A chewy dog toy with a weapon, and that was it. I think as a kid I would have been looking for something more advanced. For example, the LJN Advanced Dungeons and Dragons toy line. The LJN line already had a cool playset with Fortress of Fangs, and the second series of the Dungeons and Dragons toy line would also feature a playset. But unfortunately the line got cancelled abruptly So aside from some new action figures, we also didn't get the Snake Cave playset. This cool red looking playset remains unproduced. All we have is this picture from the AVGN catalog depicting the front. The inside is still unknown, but you can be sure there would be some death traps, dungeons, and prisons in there. Looking at the playset, you see a demon-like red silhouette. At least when it's closed, because I think this playset would actually open up. It will also come with an easy carry case handle, and the things that we can see. 2 doors, 1 regular one, and 1 made of spider webs. A ladder and some sort of snake prison on top, which I think you could actually push down to really hide the prisoner and make him pop up once again. That would have been a cool feature. Some unreleased figures were also featured, like the unproduced Viking Valkyr. The Dungeons & Dragons cartoon was met with controversy by parents and religious groups, mainly due to the violence and occult symbols featured in the episodes. One of the episodes was almost shelved. The Dragon's Graveyard would feature a character that was contemplating to kill their nemesis.
I remember a couple years ago I preached a message for television called Dungeons & Dragons, and in it I dealt with the occultic overtones, the witchcraft, the demonism, the spells.
In 1985, the FTC demanded they would run a warning during the broadcast stating Dungeons & Dragons had been linked to violent real-life deaths. In the 80s, this would have definitely held parents back, so unfortunately, due to poor sales, the toy line died. And then the last one in the bunch is probably the coolest looking one, and also the strangest one. We don't really know whether this one existed or not. The Fortress of Doom, as seen in the Remco catalog in 1984. The ultimate in fantasy fortresses is now a reality with the Fortress of Doom, a 3-foot-high, 4-level fantasy playset with elevating drawbridges, mobile transporters, working dungeons, movable gates, weapon rack, and much, much more. It's the world of fantasy figures versus the Fortress of Doom. Who can overcome it? And the fantasy play is endless. Tied in with the Warrior Beasts line, as you can see Skullman on top of the balcony alongside the other fantasy toys. The playset hasn't been confirmed to be unproduced, but there's also no evidence that it was produced. Looking at the awesome picture, and the only one we have been able to source, it seems like it was made from a durable cardboard, and I wonder if they were produced and it would still exist, because you know, that stuff breaks so easily. Now, Remco was known for their toy cars, but in 1984, the Toy Fair catalog shows a lot of Master of the Universe knockoff lines. Like Conan, Vikings, The Lost World of the Warlord. They're becoming more and more collectible, and it would have been a real treat to see the actual Masters of the Universe toys hop over to this Remco playset, like so many knockoffs by Remco would have resided inside Castle Grayskull back in the 80s. And that was just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to unproduced playsets. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely leave a like, leave a comment, and if you don't want to miss out on the next episode of Toy History, definitely subscribe and hit the notification bell. I will see you in the next video. See you later. Bye.